Thanks for joining. For today, I'm going to try to get through as much as possible. So there's quite a bit that I'm going to cover today. I'll go through it and then I'll open up for questions at the end. So everything that I'm going through today, it's really just scraping the surface of all these things. And each topic that I'm going to cover is really just the successful traits that I see that people are doing that work, just to kind of get those ideas bubbling up and dropping through each one of these and maybe a few tidbits that you can go ahead and apply right away. So successfully delegating is maybe one of the biggest challenges that I see across the clients that I work with. I know myself as a leader, I just want to say, okay, here's my idea, now go do this. But if I don't provide enough information, it doesn't work. And for years, it didn't work for me. So what I see is use tools like Asana, ClickUp, or Monday. A big gap that I see people forgetting to do is training their team on how to use those tools, especially on the task management side. So that's going to be a huge piece of delegation. When you're assigning the tasks, here's another piece that I see that are just often missed. It'll be a glorified checklist. There won't be assignments. There won't be due dates. Most importantly, there won't be priorities. And, if you're watching this or here presently, I know this happened all the time for me. I would ask somebody to do something, and then all of a sudden they go, oh crap, that's what I need to do right now because Micah asked me to do it, and that's where I need to go. So I'm going to put everything else on pause and do that. But the reality is, I was just sharing an idea, and I didn't even think it would be urgent. I was thinking 2 weeks down the road, but I didn't communicate that with the priority. So my perspective on the task and the person that I delegated the task to, their perspective was completely different. One of the big hacks that I've found in the recent year would be if I try to describe everything in a task with text, a lot gets lost. If I record a quick video, something like this, where I'm just sharing a screen, don't even have to have a presentation, just talking head or sharing a screen and walking through something to describe what's in the task, works amazing. But the opposite is also true. So anytime you need to review something that somebody's doing, have them record a Loom or a screen share of what they built, what they did, how they did it, if it matters, and have them send it back to you. And that back and forth with being able to see it is almost like sitting there in person. It saves so much time and works exceptionally well. Next one up is tracking goals. So this title is crazy: structure, prioritize, track goals, objectives, all of that stuff. They all fit together. If you have a goal, you can prioritize. If you can prioritize, you can set your objectives. If you can set your objectives, you can start structuring not only your business, but the projects that run them. So I'm going to mention Asana and ClickUp and Monday a lot in this presentation. Asana and ClickUp are the two of the three that have goals and targets, and the ability to connect those two to the work that's getting done, the projects. That is so strong and so powerful, because essentially what you can do is say, here's my goal, here's my key result, or here's my target that matches up with that goal, and then here's the work that's going to get done to achieve that target, to achieve that goal. And it can get a little bit more complicated than that, but because it connects to the work, then as that project and the tasks in that project are getting completed, then you're able to see your goal percentage go from 0 to 100, and you don't have to manage all of that yourself. It's all automatic when it's connected. If you haven't looked into it before, I would highly recommend at least reading about the basics of OKRs, stands for objectives and key results. It's a great framework to model your goals on, but there's a caveat here. I do want to say you don't want to worry about getting it perfect. I've definitely worked with teams where they'll start working down OKRs, and then all of a sudden it's weeks, literally, I'm not joking, weeks spent on wordsmithing the objective and the key results. And instead of getting the work done, they're just talking about what words we should use for the goals. The goal of the goals is to actually make progress, achieve your objectives. Don't worry about perfection. When it comes to lead generation and sales, there are huge opportunities for tools right now. Limlist is a great one. Apollo has some great advertising and marketing campaigns. You have probably heard of Apollo, maybe not so much Limlist. It's a little bit quieter. They're extremely powerful. And while this can sound maybe a little spammy, the way that I like to think about it is if I were to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, I have to go into LinkedIn, I have to find them, I have to reach out, I have to make a request, I have to send a message, then I might follow up with email. And then I have to go to Gmail or Outlook, write the email, put it in my CRM, follow up the next week. Those are all acceptable actions when it comes to lead generation and when it comes to sales. So even though the tools provide a lot of power, I would say use responsibly and model it after the work that you would do. So instead of having to do all of that manually, even following up with current clients, if you're doing that manually, consider looking at these tools where you can get in and set up that sequence of events that you would do manually, but you just do it automated. It's still coming from your Gmail or your Outlook. It's still coming from your LinkedIn. You're not going out and saying, I'm going to, send this person I've never talked to 500 emails and it's a numbers game. And then that's how we're going to get them. It's literally just saving you time doing the manual work that you would have already sent out. Now, I'll give you a quick example on this one. I moved to Boulder at the beginning of the year. Instead of me spending half my day or my whole day for the first month being here in Boulder, I set up a sequence that would reach out to people that were in Boulder that owned a business, that were in business for a certain period of time, and then sent them some emails and said, hey, I just moved to Boulder looking to meet some founders in the area. Would you be open for getting coffee sometime? And I ended up with so many coffee appointments that I essentially stopped drinking coffee for like 2 months because I had my full coffee's worth at that point. But I was able to get my daily work and my normal strategic work done because this is happening behind the scenes. All right, so I'll do a whole week on this one. It's super interesting, and this is one of my favorite topics. All right, when it comes to streamlining your execution, your operational workflows, I almost just left it at process map, period, and didn't include anything else in this list. And the reality is because just building a process map of a workflow or a procedure that you want to do, it really forces you to ask yourself questions and then answer those and think about the logic. And when you're going through this, you can visually see, oh, wait, this is a dead end, or I'm doing this in my head when I'm doing this process, but I didn't actually explain any of this to anybody while I was going through this. So all of a sudden, once it goes visual, you start having this like magic that happens where, okay, I do need this logic. And, oh, if I move this step over here, I can eliminate all these steps. I don't have to triple check it anymore. I can just double check it. Or I can ask for validation here, get the loom, and that's going to save me all of these problems that I had overall. So again, I'll do a deep dive on this in an upcoming week, but process mapping is so huge. There's some really interesting tools. I just released a video leveraging ChatGPT and Mermaid.js, which is a JavaScript platform that writes diagrams in code. So you can ask ChatGPT to take your process doc written in an outline or any structure really, or even a transcription of a video, and ask it to write mermaid.js code. And then you can copy that code into tools like Miro or Lucid, and you have a diagram that's programmed or created for you automatically from your process docs or your videos. Really, really powerful stuff. When it comes to team capacity, this is a challenge. I can't really say it's going to be super easy. All three tools that I recommend, Monday, Asana, and ClickUp, they do have team capacity management features. They all vary on power and how easy they are to use. I personally really like ClickUp's. Mondays is okay. Asana's is good as long as you're upgrading to the higher levels of the pricing tiers and leverage portfolios. But the reality is if you're running a team and you have projects and you have client work, or you just want to understand what's going on, even from a development perspective, just understanding how full an individual is and all the individuals across your team being able to really see, oh, okay, Micah's got a lot of room. Why is that? That might go back to your process optimization and taking a look at the diagram. Well, that's because he's only getting assigned 10% of all the work that we got to do, but he's also the one complaining about it. So I need to dive deeper as a leader and figure out where the problems are. So there's so many benefits of doing this, but it is one of the most difficult things to do. Having the tools where you can visualize it in Asana, Monday, or ClickUp really makes that easier. But again, I'm excited about diving deep in this and happy to answer any questions on this at the end of this presentation here as well. Team collaboration, this one, that's why I'm dedicating a whole week to this as well. There's so much that could be said to this. So I tried to distill it down into the core bullet points that I see. The number one aspect here is collaborating where the work is getting done. The idea behind this is if you're using Asana, then collaborate in Asana. Train your team to collaborate in tasks. Most of the time, I see companies go, okay, Asana or ClickUp or Monday is project management. And then over here, we have Slack, and that's a collaborative tool. So we're going to collaborate in Slack, and then we're going to track our projects in Asana. But what happens is it creates this giant moat between the projects and hopefully your goals and your objectives and the work that's getting done, and then all the communication around it. That moat leads to a huge misunderstanding of, let's say you want to look back on a project or a task or a discussion, trying to find that inside of Slack and or Teams or GChat, and trying to relate that to the work getting done is so difficult. It's nearly impossible. So if you bring those two together, collaboration will skyrocket, and it's not difficult. This is one of the easiest things to implement. Again, the Slack collaboration concept, it's not great. One of the tips that I give out a lot is if you think about real-time messaging tools like Slack and Teams and GChat, use those as urgent. So if I need to get an urgent response, Slack is perfect for that. Why? Because it's interruptive. So if I'm focused on something and a team member needs something, the way that we have it organized is they will Slack me. If I see a Slack message come in, I know they're not asking what I'm having for lunch, or they're not asking something on a project that could be done in 2 weeks. They're asking something that they need an answer to now. Slack interrupts what I'm doing. I read the message. I'm able to address it and handle it from that point, and then they get their answer and can move on. That creates a nice seamless thing. Everything else can go into ClickUp, and when I'm done focusing, I go to ClickUp inbox, and then I go through my list of questions or my list of updates and notifications, and it's not interruptive. And that variance in the workflow and collaboration is massive when it comes to improving just overall efficiency and, for me, retaining sanity throughout a workday. So, but a lot of times this is on a spectrum as well. So some people only want to work in Slack. Some people never want to touch Slack. And so for each individual company and culture, it's finding where that balance is as well. The onboarding process, and I can't wait to do a deep dive on this, is such usually low-hanging fruit. So creating Google Drive folders, creating client briefs, setting up projects, assigning tasks, setting up due dates. I've got a whole list in here, sending out welcome emails. All of those things can be automated. Creating time tracking new clients and new projects. There's so many things that feel like they should have to be done manually because that's how we've been working for so long. But now all the capabilities are there to say, hey, we just won this project or this brand new client. That is the trigger for the automation that then goes out and tackles all of these kind of busy work style things. Even if you're not bringing on projects or clients every day or every week, even by automating this once, you've now built a system. And by building a system, that means you can improve the system and you don't have to train people to do this. The other benefit of all of this is once it's built and once you have that automation, the error potential becomes super, super low. So I know when we were doing this manually, especially in my previous business, oh, I forgot to do this step. Oh, I forgot to create the folder. Oh, I forgot to send out the welcome email. Every new client had a different experience because there were so many steps, and getting a team to remember all of those steps, even with a checklist, was extremely hard. It still took hours, sometimes longer. And so when you automate it, you can turn those hours into seconds. I think right now we have about a 25-step client onboarding process that handles all the things behind the scenes internally at Workday Ninja. It takes about 20 seconds to run versus 60 minutes to execute manually if we remember to do all the steps. This kind of goes with the onboarding side a bit and a little bit with everything that we've talked about, but a team-driven knowledge base. And the idea behind this is if you don't get stuff out of your heads, if you don't get stuff out of your team's heads, then questions get answered. Teams are going to follow the path of least resistance. And the easiest thing to do is go, I don't know what the answer is. I'm going to ask somebody. And as a leader and as somebody who has the answers, you're going to get those repeat questions over and over and over again. With my last business, when I failed to do this at the right time, I tell this story quite a bit, so I apologize if you've heard it already, but I would wake up at 8 a.m. I would jump into Slack. I would have questions waiting for me. I would start answering questions. Pretty soon, I'd be eating lunch at my desk, answering questions in Slack, and then it would be 6 p.m. And I'd look back on my day going, what the hell did I do all day? I didn't get anything done, and all I did was answer questions. And that was the reason that I started developing what's the right way to systemize the knowledge base. How do you create it? And the very first thing I did was the opposite of this bullet, which was I'm going to document everything. It doesn't work. There's so much that can happen in a business, but the reality is that it's so hard to document everything. Things are still changing. New things are happening. New clients are coming in. So don't worry about that. My recommendation, and this is what I've successfully done with this business and my previous business and a number of clients, is build a system that only adds to the knowledge base when a question comes in. That's going to bubble all the needs of documentation to the top. If I have a question, I'm going to ask the knowledge base first, which is exactly what we would call it and still call it, is ask the KB first or ask the knowledge base first, instead of asking a human first, because that reduces interruption. And if it's already in the knowledge base, they can get the answer and proceed with their process or their procedure without any issues. If it's not in the knowledge base, then it's their responsibility to find the person who's responsible for this area and has the knowledge, document it, and get it in the knowledge base. And so what that does is, whether they have a question, it's either yes or no. Did they find it? Yes or no. And if no, it gets added to the knowledge base. So the next time somebody has a question, it goes through the yes path. They find it, they can execute. And that's just building it a piece at a time, but you're also empowering your team with the ability to know how to write an SOP. Just has to be super simple. Doesn't have to be super complicated. But as those things get into the knowledge base, then answers and the repeat questions start going away. It's a really, really powerful system. I'm a huge fan of automation. Proposals, contracts, invoice generations, slide decks, all of these things can be automated up to a degree. Now, that percentage of how much it can be automated is going to be based on how complicated these things are. But even taking a slide deck for an example, maybe you want a slide deck and you have a template that you use, but you want to personalize it with a prospect's name. You want to throw in their address. You want to maybe grab a few bits of information from the products that they're potentially interested in, or that would be a good fit for them. You can create a template. You can then create automation that grabs that data either from your project management system or your CRM or a Google Sheet, basically any data source, and then use that data. And maybe even a little bit of AI in there to personalize it and craft some of the messaging to fill in the placeholders in that template. Even if that gets you 50% of the way there, or if it gets you 80% of the way there, you're eliminating potential errors. You no longer have to do that. Oh, I'm going to copy and paste from the template and then find and replace. And hopefully I don't send it with the wrong name or the wrong business address in there, or all those things that we used to have to do. And so when you think about this from the concept of, I could do this with proposals, I could do this with contracts, I could automatically trigger invoice generation, I could automatically create slide decks, even going back to the lead gen side of it, where I'm going to ask some questions and then produce a personalized report with AI and automation in the middle there for a lead magnet and a conversion mechanism can become super, super powerful. Building a culture for accountability is not something that's easily put in 3 bullet points. This is really soft skills and processes put together. So a lot of this one is more of a mind state for the leader to say, where can I button things up? Where can I build my workflows and my processes and my dashboards and all of these things so that my team and individuals on my team aren't going to be able to create this he said, she said. And I feel like as I describe this, it's like, oh, is making it sound like team members are out to game the system or fool you. But sometimes people do this without even knowing it, because being accountable can be difficult. It can be hard. I've hired people where they were maybe not the right fit for the job. And so then accountability becomes scary. As you're building systems, as you're building processes, as you're refining all the things that we talked about in this presentation so far, you're going to possibly hear people get defensive. Oh, that's double work. I'm doing so much work. Now I've got to fill this out. Now I've got to do this. Now I've got to do this. The reality is the companies that are scaling, the companies that are big, they already have all that in place. They have to have accountability. They are running on KPIs. They have all of these things in place. And you don't have to go that far as a small or medium-sized business, but watch out for this type of thing happening, because it's a red flag. It's okay, if you want a company culture where everything stays above board and everybody can trust everybody. And that's kind of my last point here, is when you do build a culture of accountability, that's where trust comes in. So with my previous business, we built the Ask the Knowledge Base first. We built super strong accountability, but not just for the team, and the leaders got to do whatever they want. The leadership team and the executive team were just as accountable to the rest of the team as the rest of the team was accountable to the executive and leadership team. And that was the most important thing to create trust. When new people came on board, they knew, and everybody existing on the team knew how he worked. If I delegated it to Stacy, I knew Stacy was going to get it done. She was accountable. If I delegated it to Bo, I knew Bo was going to get it done. He was accountable. And vice versa. If they asked something of me, or if they asked something of Elaine, they knew we would be able to get it done because we were accountable to them. Setting all that up, it gives you that trust. It makes running a business so much easier. It reduces that headache level. It eliminates the BS. It's a huge topic, really fun to discuss and get into details on. But hopefully these bullets will give some ideas on, is it worth going this? In my book, 100%. I want to run every team with trust and accountability and minimize all the BS and drama that you would have to deal with when you get into team dynamics. KPIs and dashboards, I mentioned a second ago. Super quick story. I know with my previous business and even starting out Workday Ninja, I thought of KPIs as kind of a bad thing. Like, ooh, it's the corporate way to do things. I have completely changed my mind on this and have started using them for years now. The best way that I can describe them is KPIs give you the framework that you need to say, oh, okay, this is in one metric, in one visual, in one chart, I can understand what's going on. So instead of deep diving and trying to figure out, well, Where's our margins? How are we doing on this? How many active projects? I can create systems that go, how many active tasks do I have? How many active clients do I have? How many active projects do I have? How many overdue tasks do I have? Just looking at those from a metrics point of view at a count, I can look at that type of dashboard once a day and then know, ooh, this isn't quite looking right, or this isn't looking right, or we're completely on track here. And I can make decisions with data instead of feelings and emotions on like, it feels like we're not doing as good, or it feels like we're overwhelmed, or it feels like we need more work. I can look at the data and go, this is the reality of what's going on. Now, one point that I'd like to make on this is like the knowledge base. Don't worry about mapping out 100% of your KPIs and 100% of your business in KPIs and dashboards. Start with only the ones that you find yourself asking questions on. How many overdue tasks do we have? How many active projects do we have? How many clients are we managing right now? Create KPIs for those, work on dashboards for that, and then add another one a month later, a week later, a day later. It doesn't matter. Just start small and iterate and build. And within a few months, you're going to have a really solid basis. Busy work here, I think the hardest part of this one is identifying it. So a couple examples are copying and pasting stuff. I see that all the time. It has to go from one system to another. Moving data, same kind of thing. If we have a one deal, I see so many companies that will take that deal data, that information, and then move it manually into a spreadsheet, and then take it from a spreadsheet and move it into a project management system, and then take it from the project management system and then move it into a client brief. Like, whew, there's so much time. And we used to have to do that, but we don't anymore. Assignments and status changes, all the things when managing projects or getting reports, all that little stuff. I used to think the same way. I would look at that and go, why would I build an automation that might take me 15 minutes to build, or 20 minutes or an hour, when it's only solving something that takes a second to do? But the reality is, and I've done this over and over and over again, the reality is those seconds add up so quickly, especially as you have more and more people on your team. And if something is forgotten, oh, I forgot to assign that, I forgot to set the date, I forgot to update the status, I forgot to do X, I forgot to do Y, doesn't matter what it is, that bottlenecks your operations, that bottlenecks your procedures, your workflows, all of those. I should have done that, but I forgot, or I did it wrong, I made a mistake, I assigned the wrong person. All of those things are far more detrimental than the second that it took to do it. And when you can eliminate both of those, all that little bit of time that adds up, and all those potential areas that can bog your workflows and your systems down, and you just have it happen automatically, then all of a sudden it becomes this nice, well-oiled machine where things just chug along, and the team knows, hey, if I, win a deal, all of this is going to happen. If I move it to this next stage, then the assignments, the subtasks, all of this is going to happen. I don't have to copy and paste data anymore. I don't have to have any potential errors. So this is just one of those areas where I think it feels little, but once it propagates around your team, it becomes so big. This is a question that I get asked all the time. When should I hire an EA, an executive assistant? When should I hire a VA? When should I hire a project manager? It all kind of falls into the same category. But virtual assistants, or even in-person executive assistant, or just an administrative assistant, this is usually my first hire. The reason is because I don't want to absorb all my day and all my time doing time-consuming tasks that are task-driven. That I want to be able to focus on the strategic side, growing, doing presentations like this, and not have to deal with, what I can't automate, I need to do manually, even though I can do it, should I be doing it? And I need to ask myself that question, which is why I typically hire VAs or an executive assistant as my first hire for my last couple of businesses. Now, in the second bullet, the one thing that I would definitely say is I made this mistake too often as well when I was hiring this type of team member. And it's essentially the expectation of an assistant is that they're assisting you and that they want to take on task-driven workloads and tasks to get it done. I would develop relationships and go, wow, they're really great. They're smart. And then I'd start asking strategic questions and it would fall. It just wouldn't work. It did not go well. But the more task-driven work that I gave with following all the other things that I put together in this presentation, with doing the looms, giving complete requests, setting the expectations on priorities, all the items that we talked about in the first section with delegation, that's when this really hums. And then all of a sudden, that huge time-consuming part of your day is handled by a lower cost, typically, resource that can get stuff done and do it well and report back to you and get you what you need while you're doing the higher value, more strategic driven items. All right, that's it. That's my presentation from a high level. I know I zoomed through all of these. For those that couldn't make it to this presentation, I'll definitely send out the recording, but I'd love to open it up for any questions for those that are here.